The establishment of a $25 million line of credit agreement between the government of the Virgin Islands and the CIBC First Caribbean International Bank to provide working capital support is expected to solve government's cash flow problem. The motion tabled by Premier Dr. Orlando Smith received overwhelming support from government representatives after a division of votes during the 8th sitting of the House of Assembly on April 25, 2016. 4th District Representative and Minister for Communications and Works Mark Vanterpool highlighted the damaging effects of fluctuations and delays in the collection of revenues for government's fiscal operations.
This overdraft that we're going to be working with here is expected to be able to tide over the government's payments that it has to make and operate with between January and May each year and between July and November each year, when the major part, 60% of the government's revenue comes in at that time, in one big chunk almost. So, Madam Speaker, those who are suggesting and negative to this because of all kinds of reasons which are here, I don't know, maybe negative to it and possibly denying civil servants their pay on a timely basis. It is a fact, because if the funds don't come in until June, May and June, and having to be able to pay pensions and civil servants money on a regular basis and vendors money on a regular basis, Madam Speaker, there could come a time when it's not possible to pay without having an overdraft. So that you paid during the first part of the year, and when your funds come in, you clear the overdraft, then you pay it again, and you clear the overdraft. Because what happens, Madam Speaker, clearly, is the point I was making earlier. Clearly, Madam Speaker, what happens is that you do collect all the money that you said to collect in the year, by the end of the year. And you are able to pay most of the bills that you said to pay in the year. But it's just because the disparity comes when it doesn't come in on a timely basis. So by the end of the year, all is done, all is paid, but during the year, persons are at a disadvantage in the first couple of months of the year and in the fall or the third quarter of the year. And we have to be able to level that playing field out. And that's the entire idea of an overdraft facility to help you do that. Now, people may say it might be used for other things and assume all kinds of things, and that is not what is expected. The whole idea, Madam Speaker, is that you use it for this purpose.
10 of the 11 elected members on the government side in the House of Assembly voted for the establishment of the $25 million line of credit. Minister for Health and Social Development Ronnie Skelton was absent on that day. The motion passed successfully despite disapproval from the 2 members of the opposition who voted against it. Opposition leader Julian Fraser questioned government's motive to establish the $25 million line of credit, stating that the BVI is broke, and he suggested ways to solve government's cash flow problems, while 1st District Representative Andrew Foy called on government to provide copies of the documents signed by CIBC First Caribbean International Bank and the government.
Madam Speaker, the mere fact that this request had to come to the House of Assembly means that this business is public knowledge. So give this honorable House every document that you give to First Caribbean and every document the bank gave you, the government, Madam Speaker, in regards to this $25 million loan, because that is what it is. Madam Speaker, this honorable House needs to know what this government is binding themselves and the people into with this commitment letter. Or, if it's not a commitment letter, the letter of intent, or whatever document the bank gave the government of the Virgin Islands in regards to this $25 million request for a line of credit, which is really a loan.
I do not trust them. They come here to tell us one thing, and they go downtown and they do something totally different. And it takes them a year to come back here to make good on whatever changes they make downtown. Trust, Madam Speaker. They came here to this house telling us that the Pier Park project was $50 million. And they acted accordingly. They borrowed $35 million and a further $15 million. That's $50 million. Or they borrowed $35 million and told us that they were going to have a public offering for $23 million. That's $50 million. Public offering fell short, way short. So they came back and they borrowed $15 million. They went and they did all kind of things to make up the other $30 million to get to the $82.9 million that the cost is today. Still haven't reached the mark, Madam Speaker. So why should I trust them? Why should anybody trust them with the monies that they're asking for and what they said they're going to use it for? If it is true that there is some shortfall, cash flow problem as they refer to it as, now I'm on this cash flow problem thing. There is no need to borrow $25 million. First of all, I can tell you exactly where you can get $25 million from. Take the $15 million, Madam Speaker, that the Premier just put into the reserve fund. Take that $15 million. The British government don't seem to care about this protocol anyway. So who they're trying to fool? The British government and this government know full well that this thing isn't what the paper is printed on. So who they're trying to fool? Take the $15 million you just put in there. Take it out. Use that. And go to the Ports Authority, since the minister said they got buku money up there, and get your $8 million from them. That's close to $25 million. Close enough. You don't need the rest. And if you want another $2 million to make up the 25, just take $2 million from that airline that you're giving $7 million to.
Meanwhile, 5th District Representative Dolores Christopher was among members of the ruling administration to dismiss the claims of mistrust made by the opposition members. In her support of the motion, Christopher rose to criticize the financial commitments made by the last Virgin Islands Party administration, even on the morning of BVI November 2011 general elections.
Madam Speaker, there were commitments made for this government that those who made them thought that we would not have been able to proceed. They figured they had your hands bound by the commitments they made so very late in that administration up to election morning. But you see, this is a responsible government, Madam Speaker. This is a responsible government. And so all the tactics that were done with creating bills here and there, they kept coming in. They're probably still coming in all now. Some of those bills probably still unpaid because the money wasn't there to pay them. And we had to put heads together, Madam Speaker. And find out how you're going to meet those commitments that were laid up for us, hoping that we would have failed, but it didn't happen.
Now, Deputy Premier and Minister for Labor and Natural Resources, Dr. Kedrick Pickering, has lamented the crippling economic impact on small businesses when government struggles to meet its financial obligations on time for goods and services provided by those businesses in the territory. The government's recurring cash flow problem is largely due to staggering revenue collection by the various governmental agencies which go into the consolidated fund. The Deputy Premier refuted claims that government is broke.
This is about helping the little man. One of my core principles, Madam Speaker, I fundamentally believe when people work, they must be paid. Plain and simple, you know. I despise the fact of owing people. It's not in my DNA, you know. I can't make a lot of money. I can't owe people, you know. And when government owe people and people will have to come to your homes and call you up and ask you, Doc, you can't see if the government will pay me the little money what I'm owing me. It's painful. You know, and all my colleagues before have explained how government revenues are collected and why it is a problem. This is basically, simple and plain, a method and a methodology to ensure that people are paid on time. That's what it's about.
the protection of our own people. Dr. O'Neill, sorry, remember for the 9th District, said it best when he explained how his business, I have a little business myself, you know, and when you don't have the cash flow, you could run into problems. And it's a big issue that we face, all of us. We have to deal with it, where our constituents come to us and say, that minimum, I did a little work for the government 3 months ago, I can't get the little money that I do. When people provide services for government, they want to be rewarded for their services. And the bedrock of a society, especially all the small businesses. And nothing hampers a small business more than when you don't have the cash flow to pay your suppliers and pay your own employees. So many of our people depend on government for the direct revenue and for the functioning of their business, but they don't get paid on time. And invariably, it's not the fault of anybody. This system just doesn't have the cash flow to take care of it. So here we are, put our heads together as a government, you know, and come up with a solution. And by the way, Madam Speaker, the government lends money to broke people, as was said before. For the government to extend a facility of $25 million to the government, it shows that they have confidence in the government. The government can't be broke under those conditions. You know, that's a debate that is a weak argument. Can't be broke. If you're broke, nobody's going to lend you money. You know, they're going to declare you bankrupt and take what you have. So if the banking institutions find it necessary to, and by the way, it's unsecured. I don't know how my colleague didn't mention that in detail. Because they have the confidence that government has the cash flow to be able to pay up what they have to pay up. So it's a facility to help the quote-unquote little man.
Premier and Minister of Finance, Dr. Orlando Smith, has admitted that the government has a cash flow problem. In wrapping up of the budget debate in March this year, the finance minister said the cash flow problem is likely to continue until the territory's consolidated fund is sufficiently built up. Premier Smith indicated that CIBC First Caribbean International Bank has agreed to grant the $25 million operating line of credit to government. The agreement is renewable annually.